everybody? Welcome back to another week of the Reel Down. It's your host Garrett here. Jimmy is still on Daddy Watch. I guess he's closing in on getting there soon, so we'll see how that turns out. Good luck to him on that. Hope everybody had a good weekend and a good week so far. It's been kind of the swing to winter actually getting here. It's started to move in some cold fronts in this area. We got what do we got tonight? 30 degrees. Yeah, 39 tonight, down to 31, 30 in the morning. So up north, we got some snow. My wife's family up in Michigan had the first snow of the year. So winter's coming. The the winter time is definitely coming. So if you hadn't gotten your fishing in here, it's time to do it for the end of the year for a lot of people. But I know you guys up north are probably going to start hanging it up soon, unfortunately. But come down south, we'll welcome you to come fish with us while we got open water. Um, Speaking of down south, this week we got coverage of the Lake Fork event, the native. Let me get this right. The No Limit Big Bass Power Hour by Native Watercraft on Lake Fork. They had that this past weekend. It looked like a little tougher event from the past native events that they had, but they had a pretty good show out. I mean, they had 124 anglers, and in first place we got Mr. Larry Hill, which we have on with us tonight. Larry, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Congrats on your win at Lake Fork. It looked like it was pretty tough, and you made it happen, man.
Yeah, it was. I would suspect that the No Limits crew probably thought they would have a bigger day out of Lake Fork than they did.
Yeah, no doubt.
Um,
I mean, most of the time you see some pretty good numbers put up,
I
numbers
actually,
and
I actually
size.
went back and looked just out of curiosity after the Fork event was over, just to see kind of where it ranked, because at the time it felt like a big number.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah.
big number for me,
I mean
and then
that.
there were
Yeah,
a lot of people
I
that
would take that.
struggled. Yeah, there were a lot of people that struggled, but then you start looking at the numbers, and it was the lowest. I want to say the second lowest was it was in the Carolinas, I think. I don't know the lakes that they have, but it was like
Earlier
210 or
this year,
two
this one
211. Yeah.
historically.
Yeah. So
Uh,
I kind of jotted down some of the inches on those, and Fork was the bottom. I think Carolinas was 211, and I think the most was Saginaw Bay at like 450 or something like
yeah,
that.
that one was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, but that's all big smallmouth that are dumb.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
So I don't know if you've ever fished Lake Fork. Have you ever fished it before?
yeah. 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. How have you
Uh,
done on average? You have good days and then bad days, or they've been all been good?
Um, kind of good and bad, here and there, but most of the time, well, I haven't fished it in the fall though, so I don't have no any experience.
Yeah.
Most of my experience is in February through April-ish time frame.
So my first tournament
That's
with
kind of cheating. It's like
so
fly
I
fishing.
grew up 2 hours from Fork, and the first time I ever fished it was December of 2021, and it was to prepare for the BASS Fork event that was in February of 2022.
Yeah,
So February
I,
of
I
last
was
year.
there. I fished that event.
Did you really?
Uh,
How'd
and
you do? I'm kind of
uh,
curious.
I did not do very well
Yeah,
for that one.
that was cold
Um,
as balls for that tournament. I mean, it
wait.
was.
No, that wasn't that was the one that was iced over. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
No. Sorry, I fished the one previously, the year
Oh,
before
okay.
that.
Yeah, that one
Uh,
was like in the spring too, right? But
yeah,
it was, I
and
think it was more spawn, and
yeah,
people were
it was
catching fish.
March or April or
Yeah.
something, some
Yep.
more in that range.
Yeah. So that event last year, I got there on a Wednesday. Took my camper. I had a camper that it had doors on the front that fold out into beds, and I took the
Yeah,
bed off the front one and got my kayak all the way into the camper, and then
nice.
closed the door. Well, like an idiot, I got out there and I took my kayak out and put it in my truck. Like out in my truck bed. And Thursday morning, I woke up to like 2 inches of ice all over it, and there was no pre-fishing. I don't know if anybody. I think some guys did manage to pre-fish, but it was iced in for
Yeah,
till
that's
Friday.
like just being
Yeah,
on the ramps and stuff is
yeah,
dangerous.
and they actually delayed the start Saturday morning by like 2 hours, I think, to because it was 18 degrees Saturday morning when I woke up.
That's
But
wild, man.
I ended
And
up
you're
posting the
fishing for Florida strain that hate
yeah.
cold.
Well, you say that, and I thought that, but so
Yep,
that first
there were some
morning,
good limits still put up in that.
I had 39-degree water temp, and I caught the first fish of the tournament. I was the first to post a fish, and it was a 23-inch fish.
Wow,
And I caught her on a Ned rig in about 4 foot of water, and there was
that's
ice on the guides. I mean, everything.
yeah.
It was crazy. Um, I
Yeah,
was
that's
fishing.
kind of wild.
There were 2 or 3 guys around. I think Brad Case was pretty close to me, and handful of guys, and we were fishing like a bridge type area that was exposed, and there were a lot of fish around. I ended up catching two 23 and a quarters the next morning um, on a jackhammer in like 3 foot of water, like 5 feet
Dude,
apart, 10 minutes apart. And it was
were you able to put together a limit both days?
not both days. I had 110 inches for 5 fish, but it was over 2 days.
Oh, wow.
So I had a 110-inch 5 fish limit, but it was the spread. I caught 2 the first day, I think, and 3 the second day. But
Still, I
that was
mean,
my first check I'd
that's
ever
a
cut. It was I
monster
think I got
5 fish
19th.
limit. Like if
Yeah.
you're fishing like some of the tournaments we have out here sometimes are like your best 5 fish over 2 days kind of deal.
Oh, really?
Um, it like some of the state championships and stuff do that. Um,
Yeah, that was my first experience with Garrett Morgan. I don't know if you're familiar with Garrett Morgan, but he's
yeah. So actually, Garrett, if you're listening, we were gonna have him on a show tonight, but he's busy traveling to a KBT event. I think is what he said.
oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think I
um,
saw that one. Yeah,
I can't remember.
he kind of whooped everybody. He had a jig bite going on those bases of those trees and stuff. I think he had like 201 inches or something like that.
God dang.
Yeah, it was a good event for a lot of people. I mean, I had 110 inches total and finished 19th. If that gives you any indication of how
Wow.
quickly it dropped after the top five.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first national event
Wow.
that I ever fished. I don't get to fish a lot of them. I have to wait on those Texas swings, and
Mhm.
so
That's
I
kind of
fished.
how
Yeah,
I am most of the time for
yeah,
Tennessee stuff. I have to basically can only fish the stuff that comes to Tennessee.
yeah.
Every now and then I'll get to splurge and go do like a week. Usually I'll try to go to do one in Texas. I just like fishing in Texas and there Florida are the two. But I want to try to make one up north this year. Is my goal for
I
next
keep
season.
saying I'm going to do the Susky one of the tournaments because I have a brother that moved up to Pennsylvania like 4 or 5 years ago, and I keep thinking. I think he lives 2 hours from the area that most of those tournaments fish on that
Yeah,
body of water. So I keep thinking I'm going to make it up there one day
a
and have a
long
place to
haul.
stay. And yeah,
So
it's a long
we
drive
were
to
talking
fish.
earlier, but you're from like just north of Dallas.
I actually grew up in Irving, so kind of midway between Dallas and Fort Worth.
Okay.
Um, so I live in North Fort Worth now. So all the tournaments on the east side of the Metroplex are a little tougher to get to. I still do them. A lot of those
Yeah.
good lakes, those good grassy lakes in East Texas are 3 to 4 hours from me. So, you start to find them
That's
two
a
hours.
long day trip, but
Yeah.
it's doable.
It's definitely worth it though. Once you get there and you can find those fish in that grass, that's one of my favorite ways to fish. But like if we
Yeah.
go west, we got PK, which Possum Kingdom's put on a show the last couple of
Oh
big
yeah.
events there, and it's probably hour and a half west of me, so it's pretty accessible. I mean,
That's
there's
not
a
bad.
lot of good lakes in North Texas. I'm kind
I
of
was gonna
new
say
to the
it's
tournament
plentiful
scene.
uh fishing in that region
Yeah,
for largemouth. Well, I mean other stuff in general, but you were saying something about redfish up there.
yeah. There's probably my favorite lake on earth is Lake Fairfield, and it's about an hour south of Dallas. It was a power plant lake years ago. It the body of water and the land around it was actually owned by Texas Parks and Wildlife. So it was a state park
Yeah.
and a really cool lake, small enough that you could get around most of it in a day. And, had a lot of reeds and cattails and a lot of good, healthy grass and some really big fish. I think my personal best for the longest time came from there. It was a 23-inch that I caught, but that fish was probably 9 pounds or so. I
A
didn't weigh her.
balloon.
But
Jeez.
it was a summertime, it was a September fish, caught her on a jackhammer ripping through grass, and she was fat as fat could be. Probably the fattest bass I've ever caught in September, even. So
Feeding up for the winter or something. I don't
I
know.
don't know what. It's just some of those
Just
fish
eating
are
good
just
all year
healthy.
round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so that used to be a power plant lake, and it actually had red drum in it, so you could go catch redfish in it. I think there were 3 bodies of water in the state of Texas at that time that you could actually catch a redfish in. I've only
That's
caught
just
one
crazy to
redfish
me.
in my entire life, and it was at a lake called, I think it was Trading House Creek in Waco, just outside of Waco.
Yeah.
And I went there. We were trolling like DD 20s or something like that, and just trolling them around. And we'd catch a really big sand bass every once in a while. And then you hook up with a redfish. I think she was a 31-inch redfish. It was skinny
Dang,
as
that's a
skinny
pretty
could
good
be.
one.
But that's the only redfish I've caught, and it was in a lake in Texas, not on the coast or anything.
That's something. I'd be. I don't know how I'd feel if I was out there trying to catch largemouth and ended up. I
Yeah,
mean, I'd expect it if I were like on the Sabine or whatever, or somewhere around Houston doing
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Or
Brackish water, you got
yeah,
largemouth and saltwater fish.
but
Yeah,
yeah, if I'm like 100 miles from the coast or
yeah.
200 miles or whatever, and I run into a
Yeah.
redfish, I'd be like, "What the hell is going on
Yep,
here?"
that was actually I met my wife thought I was crazy at the time. I met a bunch of strangers from the internet on a Texas fishing forum back in those days is
Hey,
what I kind of lived on.
hey,
And
that's how it's done.
they planned a big redfish fishing trip. So I met a total stranger at like 5 in the morning at a Whataburger just south of Fort Worth and got in his truck and he took us redfish fishing and I'll be dang, we
Is
caught
that
some
basically
too.
what we're doing with all these tournaments? Just
Dude,
meeting strangers on the internet?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a cool experience. That's cool. How long you been fishing for and like fishing out of kayaks and all that?
So as you can tell by the gray hair, I'm an old guy. I'm
Yeah.
53.
Hey, you're still young, man. You
I
got plenty
mentioned
of
I have
time.
a 5-year-old. I've got a 42-year-old, a 39-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So
They're all over the place.
they are. That's
Yeah.
I don't recommend it. It's harder to get up in the middle of the night when you're old like me, but
I'm
um,
fighting it. I'm struggling with it, and I'm 29, and I'm struggling with. He's trying to learn how to. My little one, he's 3 months old, and he's trying to learn how to laugh right now. And he decides that he wants to do that at from
oh
12
yeah,
a.m. to
yep,
3:30 a.m. or whatever. I'm like,
yep.
can you do this in the
So
middle of the day, man? You got all day to do this. I got to go to work in a couple hours.
probably the biggest problem I'm facing right now is going to be my time because he has really taken a liking to fishing and he's a natural. Unfortunately
That's
for me,
awesome.
it's really cool, but it's a little unfortunate because it's going to cut into
Yeah.
my time, right? But I've
Hey.
taken him fishing. We spent a lot of time just learning to cast and getting the
Yeah.
cast right. And I got him a little bitty, like ultralight type, closed faced reel. And all I give him is a wacky Senko and just let him go to town. And he just sits
I
over
bet
there
he
and
whoops
casts.
you on it too.
And I've taken him fishing 5 times. He's caught fish all 5 times on his own. The last time we went, I had to help him because he had something. He kept screaming, "It's pulling me in! It's pulling me in!" I looked
Yeah.
over and he was hooked up, and I went over there and helped him, and it was a legit. It's probably a 22-inch fish and
Holy
probably
crap.
about 6 pounds. Yeah,
Dude,
so
that's awesome.
he's
So are you guys on like kayaks together
no, this was
or
just
on
bait
the
fishing a
bank?
pond. Yep,
Yeah, yeah.
yep.
Dang, that's awesome
He
though.
keeps saying he
That's
wants a
even better.
kayak. Every time we go to the kayak store, he says he wants one. I'm like, you'll get one eventually, just
Yeah.
not yet.
I think Jackson used to make one that was like a mini
Yeah, it was made for
kayak.
like 8 foot or something like that.
Yeah,
Little
it was
bitty
made.
thing.
I think they targeted from like 5 to 10 years old, somewhere in that
Hmm.
range.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but
but I mean, I basically grew up hunting and fishing. You know,
Yeah.
my dad hunted and fished a lot. We were
I
pond
think that's
hoppers
almost
and
mandatory if you live in
oh yeah,
Texas.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we were pond hoppers, and I grew up urban fishing and all the places around the metroplex and stuff like that. But I was a bank fisherman. You know, all I ever threw was a spinnerbait and some torpedoes, some topwater buzzbait, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did that for probably 45 years of my life, I think.
And
Um,
those get the job done. I mean,
yeah,
to this day, they still get the
you
job
know,
done.
and then we
But
all reach that point where you're looking out and you're thinking, man, what it'd be like to be out there somewhere and not be stuck on the bank. So
yeah,
I got my first kayak. It was a Jackson Cuda 12. I got that in it's like April of 2019. Man, it was
I'm
nice to be out
surprised it
there.
took you that long though to make that jump.
I
Like,
know, I've wondered that myself. Like, when I
yeah,
finally got into it, I thought, "What have I been missing?" Because, you know, you hear stories and you listen to enough of these podcasts
yeah,
you know, you hear these stories about guys that have been kayak tournament fishing for 10 or 12 years or 15 years and,
yeah, for
you know,
sure.
back in the days of cameras and SD cards and
I
standing in
think some of
line
the
to
like original
yeah,
live events happened in Texas.
mhm.
Like some of the first ones. I don't know exact date, but like a decade to 15 years ago, somewhere in that range.
And you know, sadly, I missed all that. I would have enjoyed all that. So my first tournament, not to get too far ahead, but my first tournament was after COVID in
Hmm.
2021, and so it was a true like roadrunner event. You know, it was a small lake though. You only had two ramps to choose from on that lake,
Yeah.
but everything was virtual. There was no in-person meetings. You know,
Yeah. That
no
was
in
you said that was during COVID, like when there's no
just after it.
check-ins.
Yep, just
Yeah.
after. Yep.
Huh.
So but yeah, I got that first kayak in 2019, and it took me all of 6 months to realize I wanted a pedal drive.
Yeah.
So,
That especially if you see other people in it,
yep,
is an easy conclusion to make.
yep. So I dabbled with some feel-free kayaks and realized that that was a little too slow for my liking. It was fun, but you know they're stable, but they're slow.
Yeah.
So I got my first Old Town was a PDL. I think it was a 120 maybe or a 134 or something like that. Um, and it was a little faster than the feel free. It was really
Yeah.
stable. I liked being able to stand and fish. And
Still, that's a good boat.
yeah, I mean, I mostly got to crappie fish and get out to some, you know, brush piles and spots that I knew I wanted to fish for crappie. And, you know, I would fish for bass, but I wasn't a big lake person. I grew up fishing ponds. So I didn't know what I was doing on a big lake.
Yeah.
That was a learning curve in and of itself. But yeah, I mean, I had that PDL probably for maybe a year or so, and then decided to go a little faster. I wanted to get into tournament fishing. Into
Mhm.
2021, I was like, okay, I want to do some tournaments. Started talking to some guys that kind of knew about them and educated me a little bit on it. So I got a Big Water 132, got it all set up. It's a little faster.
Is that what
Uh,
you're still in today?
it is. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Um,
Yeah.
you know, back then it was just the PDL and the paddle, and I'd get around. And my first year of tournament fishing was 2021, and I did not realize the learning curve that I was in for. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
you
there's
just
some
don't know. Some
gosh
things you
dang
gotta,
hammers out there.
yeah, some
Yeah.
things you gotta live through yourself. And hindsight, you look back and say, man, what was I thinking? And why did it take me so long to do this or do that? Get a power
Yeah.
pole and get a trolling motor and all that. So my first year, I think my best finish was maybe I don't even know if I eked out a top 10. I think it was maybe 15th or so. You know, I fished the North Texas Kayak Championship Trail that
Yeah.
Duke Tran runs. And I
Solid
think I
trail.
finished
Yeah.
14th or 15th that first year in the standings AOI. So
What
not,
they usually
not
average, like,
terrible.
50 or 60 or something per event, or higher than that?
So my first tournament on Fairfield in February of 2021 was, I think it was close to 90.
Yeah.
Like it kind of tapers off as the season goes on. Guys
Yeah,
kind of,
everybody usually
yeah.
starts strong in the spring and
Yep.
then kinda
So
summer
it's not
months.
uncommon for the North Texas events to have 100 or so,
Yeah, yeah,
110, and then it'll taper down to 60, 75, something like that towards the end. So,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's still finishing 14th or so in that against
Mhm.
quality field.
Yeah.
A lot of good
And
anglers in that region in general.
yeah. And, you know, I kind of used that first year to kind of network, meet some guys that I felt like I kind of jived with, you know, maybe make
Yeah,
some friendships and, you know, some guys that you could connect with after tournaments and kind of, you know, go over what worked for them and what didn't work and what worked for you. And, you know, I'm the type of person, I don't mind sharing, you know, what I caught them on the juice, so to speak. I don't,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
I don't mind that. I don't expect guys to share with me, but you know, it's cool when you find somebody that they're not threatened by it. They understand that you could fish side by side and use the same things, and one guy's going to catch something and the other won't. And
Yeah,
it's just
you could literally hand them your rod, and they
exactly,
might not be able to figure it out
yeah.
still. So
So that first year, I met a couple of guys. Eric Simeon was the first one that I really connected with, and you know, he actually won a tournament on Lake Bridgeport, and we got to talking after the tournament, and I just couldn't believe that the guy that won the tournament was sitting here talking to me, and so we kind of
yeah,
exchanged information and kept in touch, and ever since then we kind of pump each other up, and if one's fishing a tournament, the other's not, you know, you kind of reach out and say, man, you're kicking ass, way to go, keep calling, that kind of thing. And even
yeah,
during tournaments, if we see each other, you know, he's been a really good source of intel for me and just knowing how to handle yourself on the water, how to prepare. He's the ultimate preparer for a tournament. I've never seen anybody prepare like him. It's
like
and
weeks out doing
you
map
sort of
studies
learn
and
that, you know, you need that in your system and kind of, you know how to get ready for a tournament because there's a lot of stuff that goes into getting ready for one. At least for me, I'm kind of probably over the top on research. Like I love, um, you know, Google Earth and looking at lake levels and you know, finding an arrow from the past that's, you know, current like to your
yeah.
water levels now, and so you kind of know what to look for and, you know, scout it out virtually and find those spots. And
Yes,
sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't, but you know,
I feel like it does most of the time pay off, and if anything, just give you an idea of like if something's not working in your A spot, then you have an idea of like, hey, I saw this thing on that map over there.
yeah,
Maybe I should go check that out. But then you can also, like you're saying, you might burn yourself going to try to cover water and go check out too many spots.
yeah, you know,
Uh,
it's almost bad if you have too much of a plan sometimes, but
yeah,
you know, especially when it doesn't work out. But
I've
I
been
kind
trying
of,
to find like the balance of having a well thought out plan, but not overburdening myself with too
mhm,
many options. I guess because I'll get spun out if I got too many options.
yeah,
Uh,
and y- you know, for me especially, it's a lot of these lakes. Again, being a bank guy growing up and a pond fisherman, I don't know these
mhm,
lakes, and a lot of these lakes, you say that name, and there's guys that are like, "Oh, I know exactly where to go. I've got history on that. I know where to go."
yeah,
And there's so
yeah,
many lakes. Like we have the 2024 schedule just came out a couple of weeks ago for North Texas, and there's two lakes already on it in the first three lakes. There's two of them I've never fished, and so it's like, here we go. I
yeah.
got to
Better
build
start now and
history,
start
and
your
yep,
research on it.
exactly. Um,
Um,
yeah, so I spent that first year kind of just learning the ropes and working out the kinks in my kayak setup and knowing what I like where and having
yeah,
access to things and it almost being kind of
I
part
feel
of
like it almost takes 6 to 8 months in your
yeah,
kayak to kind of get
hmm,
a feel for where you want to put stuff and what's most
yeah,
functional for you, I guess.
yeah. And so we move into 2022, and that was the year of the trolling motor for me. I got an XI3 on the front.
Yeah,
And that made all the difference in the world for me. I had to start trailering it. It's a little heavier
yeah,
setup for
no
me. I'm
doubt.
getting older. You know, I got a trailer in 2022, got a trolling motor in 2022, and that's when it really opened up. Even though it's a bow mount, I still use it more or less to get around, just to
Yeah,
help me. I can pedal that big water, you know, right at 4.2, something like that. With the trolling
yeah, that's
motor
pretty good.
together, yeah, with the trolling
Yeah.
motor together, I get close to 5.
Oh wow.
So
So
it's
you just have it down and running, but pedaling at the same
going at
time,
the same
kind of
time, yeah.
boosting it. Okay.
And most tournaments these days, Brian Howell will still get out in front of me by quite a bit because he's running. I don't know what Newport he's running on the back these days, but It's
Oh,
usually most tournament starts
is he
that we
in,
have.
what kinda boat is he in?
He's in a PA. He's in a PA 360.
Probably with one of the NK 300s or whatever
Yeah.
that can is it the one with the big prop on it that's, like, this big
Well,
around?
so I think he usually runs the smaller one. He does
Okay,
have the bigger one. I just don't know when he runs. I know that he was a part of the testing of the bigger one
okay.
on Lake Fork, actually, I think, doing like photo shoots and
Yeah,
testing
yeah.
and stuff like that. But yeah,
That big motor will get up and go, man. It'll get I think I've seen people get, like, 6 to 7 miles an hour in that boat
it's
with that
insane.
motor,
It's
throwing a
insane.
wake behind them.
We do those shotgun starts on most of the tournaments. You can, like on Lake Athens, there's only one ramp. So that's the
Yeah.
first one that comes to mind. But you'll have 50, 60, 70 guys all in one little cove by the ramp. And when everybody's alarm starts going off and you start pedaling and jockeying for position and
Just,
getting it out, it's usually
uh, uh,
it's usually Brian out front.
chorus of
Yep,
dinging noises.
yep, yep. So it's usually Brian out front. You just watch his light kind of disappear into in the the dark, the
Huh,
distance. But um, that was a game changer for me. Just having that ability to fish in the wind and
for
pinpoint.
sure.
Use your GPS to keep you in a spot, and it helped me get my first win. So like I said, I went through 21, just kind of learning the ropes. 22 started, and it took me, I think end of May, I got my first win in a kayak tournament that was on Lake Athens,
Hmm,
and I got big bass as well on that one. That was an NTX KBL, so the Northeast Texas Kayak Bass League. And then a month later on Athens as well, that was the North Texas Kayak Championship, their classic, so their championship, and I won that on Lake
wow,
Athens. Also
what a
had big,
year.
also had big bass on that one. I'm telling you, it is for someone who's new. Like I'm in awe of these guys, like Matt Scotch and Guillermo and
They're
Brian
just
Howell, and to fish in some of
consistently
these tournaments against them and to win and to
yeah,
come back to the ramp and to stand around at awards in the circle and just talk about what worked and what you catch them on and that was my first big frogfish that I'd ever caught. I
wow.
caught it like 10 o'clock in the morning when the clouds broke and the sun came out and she was under some pads. And man, that was an insane day. Just that
Mm,
was by far my biggest win, to win that championship and to get big bass together. I mean, it was I'm not gonna lie, it was like a $4,000 payday, and the wife.
yeah, that's a
I think that's when the wife really realized, okay, so this you're not just wasting your time and going out and having fun. It's fun, but she sees the stressed out part of it.
yeah.
Me, not
Man,
sleeping
I need to hit
well
one of those
before, and
$4,000 paydays so I can
yeah,
convince my wife it's
yeah.
maybe that's why she doesn't like it still.
And then later that year, in September, was the Northeast Texas KBL. That was their championship on cattle. That was my first 2-day event ever, and I won that one. So in 2022, I won 3 tournaments, including 2 classics
Nice.
in the North Texas area. And again, I don't know if he'll ever hear it, but I love beating Brian Howell. That's kind of my goal every
Yeah.
tournament. Is I love to gig him and I rib him a little bit, but I mean, I'm always rooting for the guy if he's fishing a tournament that I'm not in, and hell, sometimes I root for him when I'm fishing against him. But
Yeah.
um, I actually saw him on the lake on day one that day on Caddo, and I don't remember what my number was on day one. It was like 92 inches or something. I was in the lead, and I saw him at around noon or so because I'd had a really good flurry that morning and caught all my
Yeah.
fish in the morning. And I was starting to look for fish in the midday, and I saw him, and we kind of sidled up to each other and talked. And he said he only had 2 fish. He was having a horrible day, and so I was like, well, that cove back there, I can't seem to catch him. There's a lot of activity, a lot of bait and whatnot. And so we kind of went our separate ways. And like 20 minutes later, he caught a 23.
Oh
And
god.
I'm not saying I pointed him where to catch a 23, but Brian being Brian,
You
he found one.
you gave him a scent and he
Yeah,
followed it.
exactly. And so ever since then, I've always told him, like, you got to fist bump me or something before every tournament because you're my good luck charm.
Yeah.
Um, so that was pretty much it for 22. And then we move into 2023, and it was a little, I wouldn't say rougher. You know, you have that, you had a really good year and you're thinking, man, it's going to start off gangbusters. But it took me a little while. I actually won a tournament in March on Lake of the Pines.
Hmm.
That was a Northeast Texas KBL tournament. I had never fished Lake of the Pines. It was the first time I'd ever been on it. Again, did a lot of virtual scouting, found some
Yeah.
grass on the north end, it looked like, was hoping it was there. Kind of asked a few people if they're, hey, are you seeing grass? And they were seeing grass. And so I won that tournament. I think it was middle of March, and caught all my fish real shallow in grass, like 3 to 5 foot of water. Had big fish on that one as well. She was a 22, I think.
Wow.
Caught her on a red mini max, that red
Dang.
craw mini max.
I
But
can get 22 right now.
yeah, so that was March, and then had an okay season in North Texas for the NTX KC. I think I finished seventh in points. Um, the Classic was in Athens, which should have been a lake that I did really well on since I had won 2 tournaments there last year,
Yeah.
but I didn't do very good. I think I finished like 15th, or kind of middle teens or something like
Happens,
that.
man.
So
And but you said you finished, what did you say, ninth out of how many anglers total, like
uh,
AOI wise today?
seventh, yeah, I got seventh.
Seventh?
Seventh in AOI out of, I want to say there's 100 plus, but when you come down to it, there's 50 that are invited to the Classic. So
Yeah.
I kind of view it as like 14th or seventh or whatever place you're in of like the top 50.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of guys that
Those
only
are the ones
fish
that are
two
mostly
or three
like going to be
tournaments.
consistently
Yeah.
fishing like
Yeah.
the
Because I think
trail,
for
I
that
guess.
trail, it takes 3 tournaments to qualify for the Classic. So,
Yeah.
you have a lot of guys that just fish one or two, and
Yeah.
they realize that they're just not into it as much as the rest of us. And,
Or I mean, some people just kind of roam and fish like an event here, an event there, kind of go all
yeah.
over the place and don't really like dedicate themselves to one trail.
Yeah.
But
Um,
that,
so the event on Pines early this year, I won that one, and AOI for it, I was pacing like to win the AOI, and then they had an issue, something with the trail happened, and they ended up kind of going belly up. So
oh wow,
I think if they fished 6 events, I think after 3 or 4 events, I was first, so they pretty much gave me the AOI. So the guy was like, "Hey, you earned it. And, you get what comes with it. Here's the trophy, and here's
hell yeah,
the
I'll take
you
it.
know here's the cash." And yeah, so I call it an AOI with an asterisk. So I mean, it is what it is.
Hey, I mean, nobody else has that, I guess.
Exactly. It's still the trophy. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Um.
that was pretty much 2023 in a nutshell. The season kind of winds down, and August here is when we kind of phase things out, and
Yeah.
um,
Start all your championships and
yeah.
that kind of stuff. At the end of the year stuff.
Yeah, and so, man, when I saw this Lake Fork, when like earlier in the year, when I saw the no limit schedule, and I saw Lake Fork was the last stop in October 28th, I'm like, I am in.
Yeah.
I circled it, and whatever I do, I'm not going to miss this one. And the wife was out of town. I had to arrange for my mom to keep the kiddo, and took him on a
Oh man.
Friday. Didn't get to pre-fish. Just was going to drive out there morning of and see how I did. And the lake looks totally different this year than it did last year. Last year it was 6 foot low. They
Yeah.
had drawn it down to
That's
work
one
on the
of the things I
dam.
wanted to ask you when I had asked you on was um about the lake levels and how, because I haven't really talked to a whole lot of people since the water levels come back up.
Hmm.
I've heard some stuff and watched a couple like fishing report videos and stuff, but
So I've
uh,
never, again, seeing Fork for the first time in my life, December of 21, it was already drawn down 4 feet, I think, and they were
yeah,
drawing it more. By tournament time, by that February of 2022, it was down 6 foot. And I had never experienced Fork with grass or pads or
wow,
any kind of green vegetation.
the
It
old
was
standing
wintertime,
timber and stuff.
it was cold, and it was drawn down. And so my only experience with Fork is rock and bridges and all those trees. And I'm horrible at fishing trees. I
Yeah.
just can't figure it
Those
out,
are kinda tough to figure out.
Mhm.
Uh,
But this year going into this one, the lake is back up. I want to say the week before tournament, it was like 2.75 feet low. So it was
okay.
getting better. A lot of
Not
reports of,
fully up.
yeah, but
Had it been up this summer, like, all the way up or,
no, it had never
kinda
gotten back up to full pool. It was working
okay.
its way back up. Um, and I want to
Did it
say, man, I'd have to check, but I want to say the last time I checked, it had come up like an inch or two the week of tournament.
mm,
Um, I can look real fast and see, because again, this is something that I always look at. I always look at
yeah.
water levels and look through history. So it's showing 1.95 feet down. It's come up 8 inches in the last 10 days.
Wow.
So
Have you guys had a lot of well,
a lot,
obviously, during the event, there was a lot of rain.
lot of rain.
Uh,
Yeah, it rained the week before the event. It started raining at Fort probably on Tuesday of
yeah.
tournament week, and we, being in North Texas and North Fort Worth, we'd been getting rain, 2 or 3 days before that. So I'm always watching the 10-day forecast, and I was
So is
showing
the
50% chance of rain on Saturday of tournament, but it ended up being closer to 80 once I got there, and
100 all
it
day?
was 100% being in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when I did my research for it, I asked around, and all the reports that you can find online, there was good hydrilla and coontail and some pads here and there, and so
So
with the
some of
water
that
level.
vegetation that used to be there is starting to come back
Oh
now.
yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah, but there's reports that they're finding some salvinia, and I don't know what the water hyacinth is the one that they dread the most.
Yeah, the invasive
Yeah.
one, they try
So
to they basically have to kill the whole cove or whatever to keep
yeah.
that stuff to
Yeah, so
die.
there's reports that they're going to start spraying again because of the water hyacinth.
Yeah.
'Cause that's the one that they really don't want to get at, because it'll, like you said, it'll take over an entire cove.
Yeah, and
Be
it'll
like
just get worse the
3 foot
more the
tall, and you can't fish through it and that kind of thing. So,
yeah.
um, again, I did some research, and I had some pins marked on where I wanted to go, and it was actually the same area that I fished for the BASS event in 2022. It was just going to look different. It was going to have green stuff and hopefully grass, and you hear reports, but you got to see it for your own eyes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Because you never know how it develops throughout the year until you see it in person. 'Cause
mhm.
you're
And
not gonna get
you know,
real-time satellite image unless you got, like, a drone or something you can fly
everybody's
over it.
opinion of good grass is, it's different than yours, and what's good grass, and is it
Yeah.
is it matted out, and well, there was actually some that was matted. I actually punched a little bit, but didn't. It was overcast, not the best punching
Yeah.
weather. You really need those clear blue skies to for the fish to want to get up under that stuff. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, I mean, it was so that morning I drove. It's usually 2 hours to that ramp that I was going to use. Um, and it took me about 2.5 to get there. Traffic was a beating at 3:34 in the morning. The freeway was shut down twice. I had to
Mm.
take back roads to get around it, and I think I saw 5 accidents that morning on the way there,
Jeez.
and two of them were really, really
Not a good
bad.
sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I finally showed up to the ramp thinking, I'm normally hour and a half, 2 hours early sometimes, just because I like to be. And I got there at 5:45, and lines in was going to be 7:15, so you could launch at 6:45. So I got there an hour early, and it's a single ramp, and it's kind of sketchy. It's slippery and kind of steep. And
Mm.
there was already 6 or 7 guys there. And by the time I launched, it was a full blown, you know,
Shotgun
traffic
start
jam.
almost.
It was a
Yeah.
traffic jam trying to get down the ramp to launch and all that. So, and again, fork is a little sketchy for me. I have really bad luck with stumps. I don't know
Mm. Yeah.
why they
Uh,
don't like me. They don't like my PDL. They don't like my trolling motor. But
they don't like anything with a prop
yeah,
or
I have
pretty much
broken more
or
props
fins.
on stumps. I think I'm on my fifth or sixth prop since I've had this kayak. So
I
Yeah,
know
it
a few
was.
people that have broken their drives on stumps and stuff on fork,
Yeah.
specifically fork.
So it took me, you have 30 minutes till lines in, and it took me 20 minutes or so to get to my starting spot. It wasn't up in the back where I was going to go to find grass. I was going to start on a like an old road bed and see if I could catch some fish on a square bill or
Yeah,
something that was bouncing bottom. And so I 7:15 I was probably, I would say, maybe a mile, maybe three-quarters of a mile from where I was going to actually end up. And I decided to fish my way back there, and it took me, I think I caught my first fish at 7:30 on a jackhammer, um,
nice.
on a kind of a bridge, like a submerged bridge. And then I caught another fish. It wasn't until like 9 o'clock that I caught another one. I had gone under the bridge, kind of fished my way around. Took a long time to get back into the back. And
Hmm.
once I got back in the back and found that hydrilla, I caught my third fish at like, I want to say it was 10:20. So I burned 3 hours getting back to my
Searching
spot.
around. Yeah,
And I want to say that that third fish, as slow as it was for everybody else, I guess that third fish, I was in like, I don't know, like fifth place or eighth place or something like that
yeah,
at 10:20 in the morning. I literally couldn't believe my eyes when I checked the board for the first time.
yeah.
Um,
No doubt. I mean, it's third place only had 7 fish total.
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of quality fish caught,
yeah.
but not a whole lot of quantity.
Everybody in the top 6 or 8 seemed to catch a big fish, and then a lot of guys caught one fish, and it was a big fish. Like they won one of
Yeah,
the hours with a 24 or a 23 something, and it was the only fish they caught. Like it
I
was
saw that. Well, I think
crazy.
that was something that I was gonna mention, that 24. Yeah, 24. Let me see if I can get it pulled up here. I believe that I saw something about that being the biggest fish to win a limit, or fish to win one
Yeah,
of the.
so that's Matt Frentress. He lives kind of on the east side of Dallas, I think, and he caught. I don't know if that was his only fish he caught. Uh, he said he caught that on a 7-inch power worm. Can't imagine setting the hook on a fish like that.
7-inch power worm.
And that was his only fish, right?
Yeah, that's all. That's all he had on there.
It's crazy.
One fish.
Yeah, he
And
won
then
his
that other
hours.
guy right below him had a 23 and a quarter, one
Yep.
fish.
Randy Dotson. Yeah, he was another one that I think he was fishing a
Wow, look at that
jig.
one.
I know they're insanely fat. Yeah, I
Um,
think he said he caught that in a base of a tree with a jig.
Jesus. Yeah, like you're saying, there's a lot of people here with one fish that have like one giant fish.
Hmm. Yeah,
So, what do you think, like conditions wise? It's raining, overcast, and all that.
I've
So,
always heard. I want to say it was the People's Champ himself. Told me one day that his best day was in the rain, and he loves fishing in the rain. So
mm,
shout out to Clifton Allen there for those words of encouragement. Because I was like, man, it took me. I don't think I had my fifth fish until 11:30. Uh, it's almost noon to catch your fifth fish. I know it's the no limit. It's not about your 5 fish, but I had 79 1/4 inches for my first 5. And when I checked the board with 79 inches, I want to say I was fifth or maybe even fourth, something like
mm.
that.
So at
And
that point, did you think that, like, man, I could pull this thing out?
I was thinking,
Or
if everybody's having that bad of a day, and it, like an idiot, it took me 4 hours to find my spot. And just imagine
yeah,
what I could have done back in that back, cove with, 2 or 3 more hours to spare. So when I
yeah,
got back into that cove, there were 4 guys back there. And one of the guys actually finished third in this event. I think his name is Joe Booth. He
yeah.
finished third. He was back there. We actually kind of got together and talked a little bit and kind of got to know each other and fished around each other and kind of shared spots. And I would miss a big fish and be all
Flustered or something. Yeah,
deflated that I missed a giant, because I had one fish I set the hook on that it felt really solid and it just came off in the grass. I don't know what happened. And he
Mm.
said like 20 minutes later, when I left, he went over there and caught a 20 and a half. So, we kind of,
Yeah, what could have been, man? You
we
could have
kind
hit
of
another.
moved in around each other and fished around each other. Everybody else kind of moseyed on out. I don't know. They were fishing. I think I was the only one fishing the way I was fishing. I think
Yeah.
everybody was fishing finesse and slow presentations. I was fishing a jackhammer. I fished a jackhammer all day. That's just, I locked it in my hands, and that's the way I like to fish grass. And
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money that's won on a jackhammer,
mhm,
so uh,
I caught,
especially out there.
so out of my 11 fish limit, one fish was on a wacky Senko. Um, I took a break from ripping the jackhammer. I want to say it was for about an hour and a half, and I got a little more shallower than what I'd been fishing, and there were a lot of fish chasing bait. There was so much bait back up in there. So I was fishing a
Mm,
grass flat that was probably maybe 200 yards wide and maybe 100 yards deep,
yeah,
size wise, and it was in 2 to 4 foot, and then it had a channel that was like 6 to 7 foot, like the original creek bed that ran through
yeah,
it.
yeah. But
And
did
so
it
I
have
was
grass in the channel, or was there kind of a defined edge
No,
along?
there was grass kind of in it. There was a little bit deeper, right in the center of it. There wasn't any grass, but it was
Yeah,
grass clumps up to the edge of the channel.
yeah.
Um, but I kind of got shallow and was fishing. I was fishing a wacky Cinco where I was like waking it, over stuff like over branches
Okay.
and
Yeah.
grass and whatnot, and they would come up and hit it. And I caught probably 8 or so fish that were 8 inches or less.
That's
Like,
what I was gonna say with the
yep,
14-inch minimum. It's hard to pick up a wacky rig
yep.
on these events.
And I caught one fish. I don't remember which one. I think it was a 15 and a quarter or something. So I did catch one decent one uh, on it. But like I said, I wasted an hour or so kind of in the middle of the day. It's hard when it's raining. So it rained off and on us. You'd get a 20-minute break where there was no rain. So I'd take the hood off and then I'd start seeing sprinkles and it'd rain. So I put the hood back on
Yeah.
and fish some more, and then it'd stop raining after about an hour, and so I'd take the hood off, then it'd start raining, so put the hood back on. So um, I went back probably at about 12:30 or so. I went back to ripping grass with that jackhammer, and I caught. I want to say it was about 12:30 or so. I caught a fish that put me at 110 inches, and that was the first time I really checked the board after I had caught my fifth fish. And I saw Garrett Morgan at the top, 132 inches. He was,
Mhm.
you see his name on fork on a board, and you're like, okay, crap.
Uh-oh.
Here
Yeah.
I, here I was thinking I was having a good day, and I'm gonna, lap these guys while they're sleeping, and there's Garrett Morgan at the top. So he and I think, went back and forth. Again, I started board watching a little more, which is kind of bad. You shouldn't
Yeah.
do that in a tournament, but
I wish
uh,
there was a way to get, like, live updates that kinda just, like, ping to your phone that you don't have to, like, check it, you know what
yeah.
I mean? Other than somebody texting you, I guess.
Well, I had plenty of people texting me. I don't know if you share the links to the boards when you fish a tournament, but my wife and my
Yeah,
mom were texting
every now
me.
and
I
then.
have a couple of buddies that live and die by my tournaments and want to
Yeah.
know updates, and he'll send me a text. There's one guy at work, he'll send me a text like, you just need one more. Keep hammering, keep going. And I'll tell him
Yeah.
like, I'll send him back, I suck at this. Need to sell my kayak. I don't know what I'm doing. And
Oh, yeah, I had a
you
lot of
know,
that this year.
so, um, so we went back and forth, and I want to say the last time I really checked the board was at like, I want to say it turned off at like 2:30 or 2:20 or something like that, and I took a screen capture, and I was at 140 something like and some change, and Garrett was still at 132. So I was
Oh,
up
wow.
about 8 inches on him. Um, And again, the board shut off, and so I'm like, okay, time to focus. Last 45 minutes of the tournament, you need to buckle down. I mean, it rained the hardest part of the day, that last 30 to 45 minutes. It was the hardest ring we had. You know, it wasn't so hard you couldn't fish, but it was obnoxious. It was
Yeah.
just enough to keep the hood on, and I wear glasses when I fish, and so I was having a hard time keeping my glasses dry all day, keeping the phone dry. It was hard to take a picture. I mean, it's just everything that comes with fishing in the rain. You know, stuff you wouldn't do for fun, but you're in a tournament, and so you just gotta buckle down and do it.
Yeah.
So at about 2:45, I decided to go back north on that little grass flat to that area that the small fish had been on, because I'd seen so many fish swirling and chasing bait, and I had missed a couple of fish on a jackhammer. So I got back over in that corner and I bombed a cast up as shallow as I could get it and was just ripping grass. And I just, you know, my it just felt heavy. I couldn't tell if it was grass, so I kind of popped it like you would pop grass, and it kind of popped back. So I set the
Yeah.
hook, and I mean, I just saw mouth come out of the water. You know, like, okay,
Yeah.
this is a big fish.
That's what you want to see.
This is what I've been fishing for all day back here. And it was right at 2:45, and I got her. I mean, she put up a fight. You know, you go around the right side of the kayak, back around the left side, back around the right. You know, she took me under the kayak. My rod's in the
Dang.
water. I'm trying not to get broken off, and finally get her in the net and get her over the side. And she was
That's one thing I remember about fork is like some of the hardest fighting fish I fought was on fork for their size.
oh yeah. I mean, those 15s and 16s, and I caught an 18.5 that I was sure was going to be a 20,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. But I got
Wow.
that fish in, and she was a 22, and that was in the last hour. So that was my big fish of the day, and she,
Get it pulled up here for you. That was a good one.
yeah, she was real pretty. You can tell almost all the fish that I caught were really dark fish, and you can tell that they were grass fish. I mean,
Yeah, look how dark the back on that thing
yeah,
is.
you know, that's a fish that's been living in that grass pretty much most of the summer and into the fall.
Did
Uh,
that win you that hour?
it did. So that
Awesome.
was I won the 8th hour. So the last hour you could win big fish for the hour. That was the one.
Nice. So you won the 8th hour and the tournament on the same fish.
Yep.
Hell
And
yeah.
so yeah, it turned out I didn't know I needed that fish. I thought, you know, I had it in hand, but man, I was, you know, and the first thing I did was I held the fish up and was yelling at the guys across the way from me, and they were cheering. And um,
Yeah, that's pretty
what
cool
was
to
what
see
was
that.
Garrett's big fish of the day? I don't remember.
It's a 21. That's what I was just looking at. He's got that thumb way up in there on that
Way up
thing.
in there, paralyzing them. I guess. I don't know. I haven't found a good way to keep these fish from moving.
No, there isn't. You just gotta let them wear themselves out. Sometimes it seems like.
So I had to compose myself after that fish.
Yeah.
I knew it was big. You know, you don't know who's sandbagging. You don't know who's waiting until the board shuts off to post, or wait until the line's out to post. You don't know who has good service or doesn't. You know, you're just kind of you're left to your own imagination. So I just knew that I had to keep fishing. I ended up catching a 16 at 3:05. So that was my last fish of the day,
Nice.
with like 10 minutes to spare. So I caught 38 inches in the last half hour, which it turns out I won by, I think he had 149 and I had 178.75. So,
Nice. So 30 something. Two
yeah,
fish essentially is I think what it should
so
kind of
29
look.
inches, 29.75, something like that.
Yeah.
So I definitely needed one more fish, it turned out, because I had 140 before. And, you know, we're sitting at the
Yeah, he would have
awards,
had you.
and, you know, when they start to go through, you know, fifth place, fourth place, third place, and, you know, you hear 120, 121. And I knew it was just me and Garrett left at the top. And I was actually sitting right next to Duke. I'd kind of found a spot right beside him. And when he said, you know, second place with 149, I obviously knew it wasn't, you know, me. And that was Garrett. And Garrett walked by and shook my hand and said, "Way to go. You know, you really killed him." And I turned to Duke and I said, I think I won. And he looked at me like, you know, okay, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, I'm serious. I think I won. And so when he said, you know, 178.75, obviously I knew that was my number. So that was
It's a cool feeling.
that was a really cool feeling, because, you know, it's probably the biggest tournament, I would say the biggest tournament win that I've had, you know, winning a North Texas Kayak Championship Classic is a big one. You know, money wise, it was more than this one, like
Yeah.
actual cash money. But man, I won a native Propel 10. I won $1,000 for that 8th hour.
Oh, yeah, I
Um,
forgot you won a kayak for that.
yeah,
There's a kayak for your kid right there, that
yeah,
Propel 10,
yeah.
so
Uh-huh. I don't think he's ready for that one yet.
yeah.
I'm not even going to let him know that I won a kayak. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
'cause
don't you better hide that one
he'll
for
say
a
that's
while.
mine. Yeah, you won one for me.
Save
But
it for, like, when he's just big enough for it, and then that'll be his birthday present,
uh-huh.
something like that.
Yeah, just
Right.
keep it in storage until then.
Yeah.
But
Like,
yeah,
"Yeah,
it was,
yeah, this is brand new, I just bought it."
it was a really good win. Obviously any win's a good win, but some tournaments are 10 guys, 30 guys, 50, 70, whatever. But 124, I think it was. I don't remember the exact
Yeah.
number
Well,
that
124, you nailed it.
yep. And some of those guys, I want to say, let's say obviously Garrett Morgan's from Arkansas, but there was a guy from, I think there were two
Shoot,
guys
Josh
from
Stewart was
Colorado.
there.
Who?
Josh Stewart, he fishes, in Tennessee, he's from
Okay.
Tennessee.
Yeah. I think he got like a top, well, he get like fifth or sixth,
Yeah,
maybe.
5th.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy from Colorado, Louisiana, Mississippi. I mean, like you're saying, all over the place,
Yeah.
mostly in that southeast region. But
Yep.
yeah, uh, there's still a lot of hammers in that.
I'm going to say
But
that it's my first national win. It may not be considered a national tournament, but I mean, the No Limits Trail fishes all over the country. So,
yeah,
it's
and I
a,
mean, there's a few people I'm seeing in here that have won some big tournaments that are what I would consider national anglers, I
yeah.
guess, that fish all over the place. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it was pretty rough. So, I mean, you had 124 anglers and 214 fish caught.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
That's some pretty low numbers when you think about it for fork.
yeah, that's like
So
1.8 fish per person or something
yeah,
like that.
so just a little backstory on the on Fork in recent days or weeks. The weekend before that tournament was the Berkeley Big Bass. It was put on by Bass Champs, which is a North Texas trail,
Oh,
and I want to say the numbers I saw was 1,100 anglers on Fork the weekend before, and it's either 2 or 3 days,
Jesus Christ!
and it is 1,100 anglers, 400 to 500 boats. Um, I mean, just hammering. And there's actually been two bigger tournaments. There was a Sealy Big Bass that was, I don't know, a month and a half ago, and again, it had roughly same numbers, 500 boats, something like that. So Fort
Hmm,
gets hammered in the fall, like the early fall, going into that fall transition.
yeah.
Um, it gets hammered by a lot of boats. So,
Well, not only that, it's been getting hammered all summer and all spring.
yep.
Like you're fishing fish that have literally been beating the head all year,
Hmm.
like at the end of the season, essentially. I
Yeah.
mean, out there still fishing all winter, but not as heavy as it is
And,
typically. Like,
Fork, if you talk to enough people, Fork it's a, it's a make or break type of lake or whatever you want to call it. It's either feast or famine. I mean,
yeah,
it's you either have a really good day there and you think I'm going to come back again and catch them just like it, and you'll have a blank. It's not an easy lake to catch fish on sometimes, and it doesn't make sense because it's a destination lake. I mean, it's world renowned. I mean, you would think that it's always good, but I want to say Brian was saying in his pre-fishing that he didn't do very good. He said he caught nothing but unders. Like
mm,
it's a 14-inch minimum. He said he caught nothing but unders. So
yeah.
it's
That's the other thing about it too. Is I mean, we're not seeing all the unders that were caught in this. There's probably 1,000 fish
yeah,
under 14 or whatever that were caught.
yeah.
Um, I
Most
don't
of
know
our
if that would
minimum
even
for North
catch.
Texas tournaments is 12. I think that's
Yeah,
about the average for most tournaments in general is 12.
yeah. I've seen one here and there that had like an 8-inch minimum or 10-inch minimum, but yeah, like you're
Yeah,
saying, for the most part, it's always a 12-inch minimum.
yeah. I mean, there was a point in the middle of the day where I thought they're going to think I'm cheating because I had so many 15 and a quarters. I want to say I had four 15 and a quarters.
Yeah. four at 15
Yeah.
and a quarters.
Yeah, it's like I would put a fish on the board, and I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Like another 15 and a quarter. And I'm like, "Doesn't matter. It's no limits. I'm still going to keep going." But I think my smallest was 14 and a quarter, and then I had lots in the 15 range. I had a couple of 16, 16 and a quarter, and then one 18 and a half, and then that 22 kind of rounded it out. So
I'm looking at your 15 and a quarters and see if they look different
yeah,
enough.
they're all slightly different, I think.
Yeah. So far that's what it looks like. Yeah. They all got some kind of different color hue to them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, but I will say this: I'm looking forward to next year. The next time, he said he's coming back to Texas. We'll see. He said it may not be Fork, but he'll see. So I'm gonna have to make it a point to find a couple of these to fish next year because it's a really cool way to
yeah.
handle a tournament. It's a really cool platform to,
Cool
to
format, and it's
fish as many as you can catch. And
it's not really like stressful, I guess. It's kind of more fun than some of the other. I mean, it can be still stressful,
no,
but
yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, that's how I actually told several people that before this tournament that it's not a trail that I fish. There's no stress involved. It's just catch as
yeah,
many as you can, as long as they're over 14. It's a numbers game. You have the chance of catching a big fish or a fish of a lifetime
yeah.
on a place like Fork, and you know,
And
I
the entry fee's not like ridiculously high. I mean, it's still a
no,
good
not at all.
amount, but it's not huge.
And hindsight, if I would have been back in that back, another 2 or 3 hours earlier, I think I could have easily top 200. I mean, I was at 179 with
Wow.
those fish. I mean, I was catching 15,
Then you
16
really would have made
all around.
everybody
Yeah.
feel bad coming in with 200 something inches and everybody's struggling to get to even
Hmm.
100.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool though. That's pretty special.
Yeah. It was a really rewarding day. Anytime you drive home from a tournament and you win, you're not as tired when you drive home, and you can't wait to post something, a tease
Yeah,
on Facebook or something to kind of get people riled up, and the wife's ecstatic and friends are happy for you, and it's just a really good feeling to win a tournament.
yeah, for
It's
sure.
anytime you get a top three or a podium or whatever you want to call it, it's you've had a good day. But
Yeah,
winning one just it makes you want to do it again soon.
it's the drug, man. It's you get that dopamine release or whatever from winning, and you're
Mhm.
hooked. So what all do you got next for you? Like for the rest of the year, is it you just gonna kind of hang it up for the year? Or you got
Well, I
fun
have
fish and
I usually bow hunt this time of year.
yeah,
I haven't even taken my bow out of the case, and it's
I
already
hadn't either,
first of
man.
the 1st of November. So
Yeah.
there's actually one more tournament of the year that I'm kind of looking at. I think it's December 3rd, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. It's the Louisiana State Championship. It's kind of
Okay.
an open event. So Brian Howell actually won that last year, so he's the defending Louisiana State champion. So it's actually on Toledo Bend this year. I don't remember what lake it was on last year. It was deeper into the actual state of Louisiana, but this is a border lake, so you can launch on the Texas side or the Louisiana side. So
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of experience with Toledo Bend. It's got some grass in it again on the south end, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to launch on the Texas side and see what I can do.
Pretty big lake though, isn't it? Like
It's an
huge.
enormous lake. I don't know how many
Yeah.
miles it is from north to south. It's probably more
I
than
feel
100
like that's
miles
one
or
of those
so.
places you just kind of gotta pick a spot and roll with it, and
Yep.
just kind of pick that spot apart.
Yep. And I fished there. I fished two tournaments there. I want to say last year, or maybe one even this year. One last year, one this year, and or maybe both were this year. I don't remember. But I found plenty of grass and caught plenty of fish in practice. I had bad days on the actual tournament day, but there's it should be pretty primed for some
Was it
fall grass fishing.
there or Rayburn earlier this year that was pumping out like 50-pound bags or something like that in February?
Probably Rayburn.
Rayburn.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rayburn is it's it's probably your best chance of catching a true giant in the state of Texas. Fork is hit or miss.
Yeah.
OHIV is known for big fish if you know how to forward facing sonar the
Yeah,
fish,
yeah.
but um,
I
Rayburn
don't know
can be
what
really
tournament it
good.
was. I can't remember exactly, but I remember earlier this year reading about like some guys throwing up 50 pounds or something like that on uh, one of those two lakes, Rayburn or Toledo. But I want to say one of them was Toledo and it was like 40-pound bag or something like that. And then the next one was Rayburn with like a 50-pound bag or
Yeah,
something.
I don't recall. I know that Toledo Bend was where Ben Milliken got his first win.
Yeah, yeah.
He won on Toledo Bend catching some absolute monsters. He was
Congrats to him on his Elite Series
exactly.
qualification. That's pretty
That's going
cool.
to be one to watch next year.
Yeah, no, he's
He's
gonna.
he's a little different. He doesn't dress like the rest. He doesn't act like the rest, and he's
No,
fun
he's
to
kind of
watch.
always got a chip on his shoulder. He kind of acts like,
It's going to be fun if he ever gets a camera boat. If he gets a camera in his boat on a day where he does good, and the next
yeah.
day he's got a camera, it's going to be some entertaining stuff to watch because
I
I
feel like
love watching his
ultimately it's just gonna
videos.
help the sport keep
Mhm.
growing. I mean, it's introducing a whole nother. I mean, you got a lot of those anglers that have their own YouTube channels and have good followings and stuff on that, but I feel like this is kind of a slightly different audience that he kind of has with his channel, and now you're bringing those to the watch the elites and stuff. So
He gets a lot of haters, and I just don't understand that. It's like if you don't like his
yeah,
style of fishing, just don't watch it or don't worry about it. Do your own thing.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I see that too, but I mean, I don't fall into that. I guess I try not to be negative
yeah,
towards anybody, but uh, I've watched his stuff for shoot. He used to live in Nebraska, and I watched all his stuff when he lived there. Um, I don't know, when was that, like 7 or 8 years ago or something like that.
yeah.
Uh, and watched him in his whole transition to this now fishing for the elites. It's kind of crazy to see that whole story
Hmm.
and giving up his career and all that just to go all in on fishing. So
He makes me want to get some forward facing action going on my kayak. I just haven't
yeah, he
bit the
makes it
bullet
look
yet.
so easy sometimes.
I'm a shallow water grass and whatnot
Yeah,
kind of fishing guy. I don't really enjoy offshore fishing. I don't know how to do it. I just can't seem to grasp it. I go to a lake like Possum Kingdom, and it's pretty much all offshore. I mean, there's a shallow bite
yeah,
there, but it's all rock. There's no grass. It's points and ledge fishing and that sort of thing. And I'm just not very good at it. But I know guys that have those forward facing setups and they go out there and they just kill it. Christine Fisher will go out there and one of
yeah.
her
I've had
she
mine
got her
for
biggest tournament bag ever there, her biggest fish in a tournament ever on
yeah.
PK.
I've had my active target for 2 years now, and I've probably caught 5 fish using it.
Really? Oh wow.
I suck with it, man. I've tried. I think I haven't really forced myself enough to use it because I kind of get irritated with it, and then I either waste too much time with it, or I'll be like, "Screw this," and I'll turn it off and go fish shallow somewhere and
Yeah,
go do
just go
all.
run and do your thing and
Yeah, just go do my thing, or just I get fed up with it and I'll leave it at the house. So I don't know. I've been debating just selling it because I'm just like, I'm wasting my time trying to figure this out. But
well, I've got a mentor. I like to call him a mentor. Everybody needs a mentor, right? His
yeah,
name is Dan Wynn, and he is going to talk me into getting live scope at some point. He's going
yeah,
to succeed in talking me into it because he makes it look fun and makes it look easy. And maybe one day I'll just turn it over to him and give him money and say, "Here, set me up and
just show me how it's
get
done.
it get it dialed in. Give me some training sessions." And there's times I wish I had it. There's times I know I could probably use it
Yeah,
when those fish aren't shallow or when it's
yeah. There's
you know
definitely
you're
some situations, and I guess another thing that I've been tossing up back and forth. You were talking earlier about having the XI3 and how that's made a huge difference in your fishing.
yeah
That's something I've been going back and forth on. because I feel like using that in combination with active target fishing offshore would be a lot more effective than or what I'm trying to do now using my PA. I've got the 360, so I'm like
Yeah.
constantly trying to adjust to keep on a spot.
Yeah,
Um,
it's almost like an art form having to keep it
yeah,
stable and keep a fish on the screen and, the
yeah,
wind's not blowing you around and
yeah. So I feel like I'd just be less frustrated. I think what happens is I get frustrated trying to do that, and then I'm just like, so I feel like I'm wasting so much time adjusting that I'm not actually fishing. So
yeah,
I think that'd make a big difference if I added that motor, but just another thing to put on my boat and
it it
more.
it gets ridiculous fast
Yeah,
when you start adding up everything you put on a kayak from the front to the back. It's I'm kind of embarrassed sometimes when people ask me, "Hey, how much you got
yeah.
in that?" Like I was like, "Well, the
Yeah, I try to
kayak
avoid it as much.
2,800 and the trolling motor is 1,200. The battery is 1,000 and the power pole is 500." And their eyes are like, "What the?"
What?
Like,
Yeah, what
yeah.
are you talking about?
And then you hear the
Uh,
whole like, "You should have just got a boat." Like, well,
yep.
yeah, probably. It's not quite the same,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. I kind of have gone towards the notion like somebody asked me what I spent on my kayak setup, and I'm like, look, I have mine set up for a very specific thing for like hardcore tournament fishing, essentially.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna recommend that everybody go out and buy this kind of setup. I like it and I enjoy it, but yeah, it's a hefty price tag on this kind of setup.
I think I've fun fished maybe 5 times in the last 2 years. Like, it
Yeah,
just seems like I'm either practicing for a tournament or fishing a tournament or getting ready for the next one. That's every once in a while, I'll say, "No electronics." I'll just pick someplace, a small lake, and just go, you know, leave the trolling motor at home, just pedal out and then paddle around some grass and just fish for fun.
yeah. That's I kind of feel like I have my best days on the water when I go do that. When I just let myself loose, basically, and kind of go have fun
Mhm.
for a minute.
My goal for 2024 is stress-free tournament fishing. That's my goal.
It
Like,
doesn't exist.
no stress on the water, no worrying about where you finish or how
Yeah,
many you catch or what you catch, and you
I
know,
think that the more you expose yourself to it, the more that you get less stressed about it, unless you've got like responsibilities that are tied to it, like if you've got sponsors and stuff or paycheck to that you're depending
travel
on.
expenses. You're across the country, and
Yeah,
you're going to
then
drive
that's when
across
it
the
starts
country for
getting
another one, and
a lot more stressful when that's your livelihood and you're depending on it. But yeah, if you're in a position where you don't have to do that, then it's a lot more fun, I feel like.
well, everybody I fish with and everybody I'm friends with says you just stress out too much. Don't stress so much. I'm like,
But yeah.
easier said than done, but I'll try. I will try.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. You got any sponsors or any family you want to thank for your year, your season, and this event? I guess.
So, sponsor wise, not true sponsors. I have a short list. Someone asked me today. Matter of fact, like, if you had sponsors, who would you want them to be? So my short list would, I use all TFO rods, so I'm all
Yeah.
Simple Fork
Yeah.
Outfitters for my rods.
Make some good
Um,
stuff.
I use a lot of Z-Man stuff. I use razor shads on the back of all my jackhammers and baby goats on the back of all my mini maxes. So I mean,
Yeah.
Z-Man would be a
Catch a
big
lot of
one.
fish on the mini max. I have not thrown it a whole lot. But
It's kind of my secret weapon. It won the
oh
Caddo
wow.
Championship for me.
Huh.
'Cause, you get in that fall period and, you
Yeah,
kinda
yeah.
scale
That's
back and,
exactly what I bought it for, was for the fall.
my big fish and my Lake of the Pines win earlier this year came on a mini max.
Hmm. And you
It
got it paired with a baby goat, is that what you
baby
said?
yeah. I like to do the
Yeah.
baby goat kind of vertical,
Vertically?
not
Yeah.
flat. I like to do it vertical.
Okay.
Its size is perfect on it, and it gives a little more float because those if you've never fished a mini max, I don't know if you have or not,
I've got one tied on, but I have not had it in the
They
water yet.
they fish heavier than they're rated. So the quarter
Oh,
ounce will fish like a half, or will fish like a 3/8. A 3/8 fishes like a half, and the half fishes like a 5/8.
three
They
quarter
just,
or something.
because they're
Yeah.
smaller and they're a
Oh,
little more compact and a smaller hook and a smaller blade,
yeah. It
they
sinks
they
faster.
it sinks faster. It's got a tighter wobble, kind of
Yeah.
like a not like a lipless, but kind of, like a frit side or something that just
Okay.
has a
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
tight. You can feel the vibration, but it's not the crazy big, wide stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that was my first experience with one, was Caddo last year,
Hmm.
and it kind of blew my mind, the number of fish I caught. I only had one, and I had one that was too heavy feeling, but I just kept reeling it faster, and
Yeah.
I was catching fish as quick as I could cast it. But
Huh. Do
um,
you
it,
feel like you can like burn it faster than you could a jackhammer? Because I feel like with a jackhammer, you kind of blow it out if you go too
Jackhammers
fast.
are hard to burn for sure.
Yeah.
You got to go to like a half ounce and use a trailer that doesn't catch any water. So like a
Yeah.
razor shad or something a little more streamlined. But you know, I don't like to fish my chatterbaits really fast. Like on the
Yeah.
Fork event this past weekend, I was fishing my 3/8 inch, or sorry, 3/8 ounce with a razor shad on it, and I was fishing really slow,
Hmm.
like as slow as I could go. And I want to say that Garrett Morgan said that he was ripping it. He was like as fast as he could reel that thing. He was
Wild. Two
almost out of the
totally
water
different
fast.
approaches.
And mine was the total opposite. The slower I
Yeah.
went, the more bites I got.
Oh.
And you just creeping it through that grass, you get hung up, you just reel it through a little bit, maybe give it a little pop and just keep going, and the fish would hit it.
Hmm.
Um, Mini maxes, I've noticed they don't get hung up as bad in the grass as well. That's another
I guess
benefit
the
to
hook's
them.
smaller and all that. It's
Smaller
less
hook, it tends to
profile to
come
get
through the
hung
grass
up.
better.
Yeah.
Um, so I like to tinker with some of my stuff. So I have a set of mini maxes that I've actually drilled a little hole in and put my own weed guard in there, added some fibers in there and made a little weed guard. So
Very nice.
I've done
Oh,
so on, we have some East Texas lakes that are super thick grass, and they're almost too much to fish, to rip stuff out of.
yeah.
So I found if I
You only
put
got like two options. You can frog it or punch it. That's what you
exactly.
can do.
So I've gotten to where I've got two or three mini maxes that I've added my own fiber weed guard to, that I really like to use those in real heavy grass, because number
Huh.
one, they doesn't hang up as much to begin with, but you put a little bit of weed guard on there, and it's not a stiff one. It's just enough
Yeah.
to help it come through the grass.
Huh.
Um, but
I have
I'll
to try that.
always, every tournament I fish, even if it's a rocky lake or whatever, I've got a mini max and a jackhammer. I've got two dedicated rods for them that will always have those on there. So
Wow.
it's kind of my go-to.
Huh. Yeah, I might have to get that thing out, especially now. They're definitely doing the fall thing now, so I need to get that out. Maybe too
So
late now,
something
but
else that's not to delay it too much longer, but something else that's a little odd for me is I cannot seem to catch fish on a shad color, any kind of chatterbait, whether it be a mini
really,
max or a jackhammer. Shad colors, I think I've caught maybe 5 or 6 fish total on those colors. All of mine
not
are
even
dark.
like a white one.
Mm-mm.
Just a straight up white
I don't
one.
know
Oh,
why I can't seem to catch fish on them, but they
I
just
catch
don't
a,
work
I
for me.
catch a white one out here quite a bit. Um, but maybe that's just like a species or regional
I don't know.
thing.
It seems
Something.
like everybody else does fine on them
Yeah.
in this part of Texas, but black and blue is what works for me.
Yeah.
It's what I
Black and blue.
use 90% of the time. I've got some craw colors and some
I
brink
like
colors.
the one that's like a green pumpkin and black blue mixture. I don't remember what that color's
bruised
called.
bruised green pumpkin.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one pretty good.
So that was my juice for fork.
Oh yeah.
Bruised green pumpkin jackhammer with a green pumpkin razor shad on the back.
Wow. Well, I didn't mean to make you spill that.
Oh, it's no secret anymore. There's plenty of guys that know black and blue.
Yeah,
That's pretty much a standard. Something about grass lakes, when you're fishing really dark water and
for
and
sure.
and lots of grass, and those fish have been up in it. something about that black and blue, those darker colors, they just really, for me anyway, they really respond to it. They really, I don't know if they think it's a brim or another small bass or some other. I don't think they think it's a shad. I don't know what they think,
I
but
don't know.
it gets them.
It kind of blends into the grass a little bit. I don't know what.
There's a lot of times I think that's what makes the difference. They don't know what it is.
Yeah,
They can't get a good view of it. They don't see it real well, but
yeah.
they feel it. They feel that vibration. They feel it rip out of the grass. They sense that. And I think it triggers them more than they're feeding. It just triggers more of that
Hmm. Reaction strike.
reaction to get something that just went
Yeah,
by them or just disturbed the grass. So
because I have caught some grass fish on a white jackhammer before, but like you're saying, I think most of my luck and bigger fish at least come on like a black and blue or darker green pumpkin uh,
yeah.
jackhammer.
So I carry, I don't know how many rods you carry. You're in a PA. Do you keep them vertical or horizontal?
Both.
So
I carry like 12.
I've got an old Flambeau. What was that case called? The gray one with the green latches.
Oh yeah.
Tough crate. I don't remember
Called
what it
that
was
thing. Yeah,
called.
yeah.
So I've got one of those, and I know people are all about the black pack and the yak
Hmm.
attack and all that. And I've looked at them, but I've got one of the Flambeau cases that I actually bought another used one and added a third compartment on top. And
Okay.
so I've got the bigger bottom part and then the medium sized compartment and then a top medium compartment. So I've got like a 3 level or 2 level on top of the main. And so I've got it rigged up where I've got 9 rod holders on it with the way it fits
Dang.
in the back of my kayak. So I carry
Yeah.
9. And my first 3 are jackhammer, mini max, swim jig, and they're all dark colors. There'll be black and blue or bluegill or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. So
So, hmm. That's a pretty solid lineup. And that's your like kind of go to any time of the year, or just like
most of the time.
when
So
it's
for fork, it was pretty average for me if I'm fishing a grass lake. I had those 3. I had a worm tied on like a Texas rig. I had a punching setup. I had a frog. I had
yeah.
a buzz bait. I'm trying to think. There's 1 or 2 I'm missing. I think I had a spinner bait and I had a square bill. So that was my setup for fork.
That
And I
sounds pretty.
tried all but one of those throughout that day and caught fish, all my fish on a jackhammer and then that one fish on a wacky.
Hmm.
That was the other 2. I had a shaky head, so I carried 2 spinning rods. I had a shaky head and I had a wacky Senko. So,
Yeah.
and I think I fished all of them at one point or another throughout that morning
That's
till I figured
I
out.
tend to do that too. I cycle through them, and I
Yeah,
think I waste a lot of time. I feel like doing
that's
that,
how I
but
wasted 3 hours getting to the back. And then once I got to the back, I'm like, okay, so all I needed was the jackhammer. I just needed 1 rod today,
yeah, I
basically.
needed one rod, and I should have went straight back here.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, you never know. You never know what the situation's
Plan
gonna
for
be.
the worst and hope for
Yeah,
the best, I guess.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Um,
as far as sponsors, like you said, I don't really have any, but I would love to give a huge shout out to Mariner Sales, Duke, Tran, and the
yeah,
team over there. It's a blessing at times to have them so close. I think I work like 30 minutes from them. I live like maybe 40 minutes from them. They're in the heart of Dallas. They're pretty local to anybody in the Metroplex or North Texas. They do a phenomenal job. They work on kayaks. They'll set your kayak up from front to back if you need it.
yeah.
He's always good on parts
I
and
think
fixing me up on things.
I saw something where they're like one of the biggest Toby dealers or something
Yeah,
in the country or something like
yeah.
that. Maybe I'm thinking of a different place.
No, you hear a lot about dugout bait and tackle and places like that.
Yeah,
And there's a couple around the country that you hear about, but if you're in the Southwest or South region or whatever, Mariner Sales, and they've got a website and they ship parts
I
and
want to say I bought a couple parts that the only place I could find them was through
yeah,
them.
hmm
Um,
they are super, and they support. Mariner Sales does so much for the local trails, especially the North Texas Trail and the Texas Throwdown, the big annual tournament that happens every
yeah,
year with where all of Texas comes together to fish it, and they're a huge part of the kayak fishing scene, the kayak tournament scene. So
yeah, that's really cool.
big shout out to them. But other than that, my wife, She is my biggest supporter. Thought I was crazy when I got into this, but
Yeah.
sees the fruits of my labors
No doubt.
and
It helps when you bring home that paycheck.
she loves to fish. I mean, I've got pictures of her when she was 6 months pregnant with our little boy, just waist deep out in the pond fishing and catching bass on the top water. And
Yeah.
you know, she would
That's really
fish more
cool.
if she had the time and if we had the time for her to. But I can't say enough about the support that I get from her and friends and family. So
Yeah,
everybody,
that's really cool.
it's
It's good
it,
to have that in your life.
yeah, it's cool to have people. I was didn't want to talk about it much in the beginning, but I have post tournament recaps when I come into work on Monday, and the guys come in and sit down with coffee and say, "Tell me about the tournament." And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Little Monday morning meeting. That's your meeting. You go over your tournaments.
yeah. And of course, I don't know if anybody ever thanks you, but shows like this. I mean, I spent my first full year, 2021, listening to everything I could listen to. The Most of the shows on the Paddle and Fin Network, the Reel Down.
It's cool, man.
Um,
It's cool to hear.
I love recaps. I love reading how people caught them, even if it's a tournament I didn't fish, but usually
Yeah.
tournaments that I
Some
fish.
random tournament out
Yep.
northeast somewhere you probably never get
Yep.
to or something like that.
And it cost me a lot of money the first year because I'm buying stuff that I have no business buying. I've got too much tackle and
Oh yeah.
too much stuff that I'll never ever use, and I should probably sell. But um,
That's what I'm getting ready to do for my winter project, I guess, is go through this mound of
organized.
tackle I got in my
Mhm.
garage. It's just like I've got packages of stuff I haven't even touched in like 3 or 4 years.
I just did that. I think 2 months ago. Bought the pegboard and got it all set up and in the garage and try to organize some things. And then you really realize the stuff you don't use. But then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
there that is. I knew I had that. I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
There it is.
I went from the peg. I've had the pegboards. I got like Tupperware things and the Rubbermaid things or whatever, and going back and forth between those. And then I just ended up throwing it, like getting lazy basically, and throwing it on my like table that I have in there, and it's literally like I gotta take a picture of it, but it's like a mound that's like a couple
Yep.
feet tall of just shit that I didn't feel like putting up, or I was like in a rush to put it up at some point. So
I'm the same way, but I guarantee if I was looking for something specific, I know exactly where it's at. I know which pile it's under, and
yeah,
it's kind of like a filing system. But yeah, I
you
try to be as
gotta.
organized as I can. But after a full year of fishing, it's just a mess, and
Oh yeah,
that's what the off
that's.
season's for, is to
I
piece it
feel
all
like
back
half of my
together.
time is just spent trying to reorganize and clean up
Mhm.
and all that.
Yep,
Well, Larry, man, it was good having you on. I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk about your event and to hear more
absolutely.
about you and um, how you got your start in tournament fishing and all that. You had a pretty successful career for only being doing it for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a lot of research and study and listening to podcasts and watching the live shows. And um, I appreciate you having me on. You'll be happy to know it's the first podcast or show that I've been on. So
Yeah, well, I think you did
hopefully,
great.
hopefully not the last.
Yeah, hopefully we get to have you back on in some of your future events that you do. And
Absolutely.
I think I've been tossing around the idea of maybe doing like trying to cover some more local, like grassroots stuff every now and then, because I
Mhm.
feel like on our show mostly we've been focusing heavily on just national events, which definitely deserve their airtime. But I
Yeah.
kind of want to give some grassroots stuff some love every now and then. So
Yep.
I may start looking more into. My biggest problem is it's hard for me to find the time to follow all the grassroots clubs in the country. So
There's a lot
uh,
these days.
yeah,
I mean, Texas
uh,
alone, I know Texas is a big state and the fishing is good in Texas, but you could fish almost every weekend of the year in a kayak tournament in the state of
yeah,
Texas. There's probably
Texas,
eight or 10 trails within 5 hours, 6 hours of me. So,
yeah,
yep,
and they go year round just about. So
almost. Yeah, they start in
uh,
February. I think there's actually one in January next year is when they start here
wow,
in kind of South Texas. So,
yeah, we got our Tennessee trail that starts back our Tennessee Bass Nation Trail that starts back in December.
Yeah.
It's their first event
Wow.
for the 2024 season, and then they got one December, January, February, all the way up through. I think they're moving their championship to October, so it's like 10 or 11 months of fishing for them.
Wow.
It's gonna be a long year for that one. I don't think I plan on fishing all of those, but I think you just got to fish. You got to finish top 15% or something like that, and one to make the championships. That's my goal.
Nice.
Uh, and maybe try to chase the AOI. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think they're doing top. What did we say? It was like one of our shows we just had 5 events for AOI. I think that's what they're doing. 4 or 5 out of the 10 or 11. So you don't got to fish all of them.
No, that's doable.
Yeah, but you got to do really well in those 4 or 5. So we'll see. Well, good luck to you, man, in the rest of your season. Now you said one more event, that, and then good luck to you next year. That's hopefully you get to continue on a hot streak going
I,
into next year.
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to 2024 already. You know,
Yeah,
I,
all the schedules are coming out, and all I think Hobie's probably going to release their schedule soon after the TOC or
TLC, yeah.
during. So we'll see what they got in store, and KBF looks like they've already got their stuff put together, and all the other
Yeah,
trails.
BASS already released theirs, so
Yeah. So it's about that time start getting geared up for next season.
start planning, start setting up some weekend travel
Yeah,
plans and that kind of stuff.
putting your vacation in and all that. I don't have a recap of all the other tournaments that happened this past weekend, so apologize if anybody was looking forward to listening to that part. uh, but any of our listeners out there that got some grassroots events that are interesting events, and send them to me or let me know. I'd be open to try to cover some grassroots stuff. But other than that, that's all I got for you guys tonight. Again, appreciate Larry coming on. It's been a good show, I feel like.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, everybody be safe out there and take care. Shoot me some messages. We'll be back next week. We'll see it.